Hi. Hi, my name is Lindy Jung, and I am a soon-to-be traditionally published science fiction and fantasy author. That feels really freaking weird to say. So if you've clicked on this video because of the nature of YouTube, you probably already kind of know what's coming. But we're going to get into all of the nitty-gritty details because yes, I officially sold and am going to publish my debut novel, MOTHSBLOOD, a dark academia adult fantasy, in fall of 2026 with Bloomsbury US. So yes, the book I've been referring to as Project Moths on this channel for pretty much as long as I can remember is going to be published, and this is a dream that I've been working toward for the vast majority of my life, to the point where you could pretty much say it's been my whole life. Today's video is going to be, of course, incredibly special, and it's also probably going to be long-winded and a little bit emotional as well, so just bracing all of y'all for that. And while this video is primarily going to be a discussion about how this particular book deal happened, I also wanted to reflect upon the very long writing journey that led up to this point. While the journey of MOTHSBLOOD is yet to be concluded, we still have a long way to go until pub day, and I have a lot to do. The actual point from querying to book deal offer was relatively short. I only queried for a few weeks really, and then I was on submission for 3 months. This was not the reality for the rest of my journey. It was about 7-8 years since I first signed with my very first agent up until this point. So yeah, it was a long road, and we're gonna talk about it. But before we dive into all of the publishing stuff, I wanted to mention a little bit about this book in case you didn't know. MOTHSBLOOD is an adult fantasy set in an alternate version of modern day Paris. Larkspur Lee, the main character, is an ambitious student at a prestigious graduate school for alchemists. But when the immortal headmistress of the school is murdered, Lark is forced to confront the dark past she's tried desperately to escape. This is a book that weaves together alchemy and ghosts and murder mystery a little bit and magic, and of course my well-documented interest and love for slightly evil women. I have been drafting and marinating MOTHSBLOOD for several years, so this is a book that took around 4 or 5 years to write from initial concept to the draft that I eventually queried with, and now we're going to continue revising and working on it and making it the best story that it possibly can be before we send it out into the world. So it's not over yet, and I've documented a huge chunk of the MOTHSBLOOD writing process and writing journey right here on this channel, and I will continue to document it and make videos as we move through this new phase of the journey. But if you've been watching this channel for a while, and especially if you've been watching since I started it back in 2020, then you've also witnessed, I'm not going to say failures, but my many obstacles along the way. I've had 2 books die on submission, both were young adult fantasy and slightly different flavors of fantasy. I have had 3 literary agents at this point. I'm on my 3rd one, who is an amazing person. Just shout out to Laura for being incredible. And so all in all, including the time that I spent actively pursuing traditional publishing, as in I was writing stories with the goal of submitting them to agents and trying to get them on shelves, I have been on this path for at least a decade, and it's just that 7-year period that I mentioned before is how long I've spent with an agent, more or less. I am one of those people that knew that they wanted to be a published author from a young age. I distinctly remember the instigating factor being the book A School Story by Andrew Clements. I had to look that up because that is such a recessed memory. It's so in the back of my mind. But basically that's a book for children from the early 2000s where the main characters are 2 children who somehow get a book published. And I read that, and it was a very fictionalized, kind of idealized for kids version of the publishing industry, but I learned about literary agents through that. I learned about editors and submission. After reading that, I was very impressionable. I knew that was what I wanted to do. So that was in elementary school. Obviously, it didn't quite work out for me. I think I ended up bullying one of my friends at the time. We were both 8 or 9 or 10, small children, to be my literary agent, and I just harassed her to submit my beautiful book that was 10 pages long to publishers. So that was my very ridiculous, very young attempt at publishing, and that was the first one. And then in high school, I, got access to the internet, and I learned a little bit more about publishing through the very scant resources available at the time. I think I very pathetically queried a book in middle school to literary agents, sorry to anyone who had to look at that, and then I did it again in high school. And I think I got my first partial request in high school from that second attempt at querying, which is really funny to me because I never submitted it because I got scared. And then fast forward a couple years, graduated high school, wrote the same book but a little bit better. Ended up querying that my first year of college. So I queried the summer before college. I took 2 years off between college and high school, so there was a gap there. I ended up signing with a wonderful literary agent after having some success in like Twitter pitch contests. We put that book on submission after a really long editing period. COVID hit like a couple months after we went out on submission, so obviously that messed everything up as well. My agent ended up leaving the industry because of like factors outside of our control basically, and I was shuffled to a new agent at that agency. Really liked that person as well. We worked on my second book together, a young adult fantasy as well. Revised that for a bit, went on submission. It also wasn't gaining any traction. I was like, I need a refresh, so I ended up parting ways with that agent and pivoting to focus on adult books. I was at this point 24, 25. I was older. I think I was 25. I just wasn't really feeling the young adult stuff anymore. I wanted to write adult. That was where my heart was leading me. So I dabbled in a couple of different projects, ended up settling on an idea that I'd been toying with for a little while that was originally young adult and then kind of evolved into a much darker adult dark academia story. I decided to set it in Paris somewhere along the way. This character kind of came to my mind and started to become a fully fledged person on the page. Her name is Lark, and that was it. The rest was history. During my unagented period, I was very focused on drafting this book as I was traveling and doing other things, and I revised it a little bit. I revised it on my own, didn't send it out to beta readers. Don't do that. I felt good about this one, and honestly, this was big for me because I was not incredibly vocal about this, but there was a period of time where I was really uncertain about my future as a writer, basically. I always knew I would continue writing stories. Publishing side of things was not working for me, as you could probably tell. And after I left my second agent, I was like, is this going to happen or should I just give up? And the reason that I didn't was because Lark, for one thing, was such a clear character in my mind, and I just kind of knew. I knew that this book was a lot stronger than the ones that I'd previously written, and I knew that if I didn't give it a fair shot, that would be a disservice to the book and to myself. So I queried. It was very fast. You can watch that happen in this vlog right here. So after I signed with Laura, we did a very quick revision, or relatively quick, and then we went on submission. I was bracing myself, and you're about to see the whole journey, because the vlog that I'm about to share is just me filming a clip every time something happened on submission from beginning to end. I was bracing myself. I was ready for a long haul. I was not really believing in myself very much, if I'm going to be honest. I had tempered expectations, I think is the positive way of putting it, and then the non-positive way of putting it is that I was straight up expecting to die on sub again. Let's backtrack a little bit, because submission is when your literary agent sends your book out to editors at various publishing houses. Publishing houses are split up into imprints. Imprints usually have some sort of specialty. Imprints are populated by editors, and acquiring editors will read submissions, pick out the ones that they like and also think have a fighting chance in the market, and then work with the team to make an offer on that book if they want to publish it. So if that happens, then congratulations, you have a book deal. And while that does sound simple, because I did simplify it, the simplicity is not the reality of submission. It's complex, it's messy. There's a thing called acquisitions where even if an editor loves your book, sees a future for it, really, really, really wants to acquire it and publish it and work with you on it, if they take it to the broader team and someone in, for example, marketing is like, we actually don't know what to do with this book, then you might not actually get acquired. There's a bunch of other factors. I'm not even going to try to explain them because I'm not going to pretend I understand these things. From the author side of things, I've personally found that submission is much more taxing than querying is. And I say this understanding how frustrating and stressful querying can be for a lot of authors. I'm not trying to diminish the stress that you've experienced on your querying journey. I'm just trying to warn you that sub is often a lot worse. For me, querying, at least I felt like I had some semblance of control. Submission, there's large chunks of time where there's just radio silence, and that's not the agent or editor's fault. It's just that nothing is happening, nothing is moving. And so just sitting there, checking my inbox every couple seconds, every couple minutes, that was really tough. Even though I didn't have the highest expectations for this process, I decided to film a submission blog anyway because I wanted to record this, win, lose, or draw. Like, I wanted to share this experience with y'all because it's something that is so little discussed and so little shared. I think in part because like there's a lot of things that you're really not supposed to say about being on submission, and I was very careful to not like disparage anyone. In this business, you don't really want to talk negatively about anyone who is just doing their job. And I feel like I have a good understanding of that. So I felt okay just vlogging about my submission process, vlogging about the ups and downs. And again, I just really wanted to share it with you guys, just in case there are people out there who are quietly suffering on submission. I'm very lucky in that I have a wonderful support network of other authors who are in the tradpub space who will listen to me vent. But I know a lot of writers don't necessarily have that privilege, so I hope this makes you feel less alone. Your journey is not abnormal. Your journey is your journey. And let's watch the submission process. Okay.
You long for the outside? Yeah. It's currently Saturday, September 7th. This is going to be clip number 1 of the big submission vlog because I got an email from my agent while I was out, and we're probably going out on submission on Monday. So I have to respond really quickly, but yeah, we have our finalized pitch with just a couple notes on my bio. So the pitch goes into the body of the email that is being sent out to editors. I've seen my full submission list, like basically everyone we're gonna aim for. So the full list is about 30 editors total. That's 1 editor for each imprint that my agent thinks this book might find a place with. But the first round is only going to be 11, and I kind of like gave her feedback on which imprints I want to prioritize, like which ones are kind of the dream for me. But yeah, so everything's set up. She is such a superstar. She got that list done so fast. And what happened was that like I had turned in my revision last Monday. Yeah, last Monday on like the Labor Day Monday, and she read it through really quickly, and then on Friday was like, I think this is ready to go out on sub if you're ready. And I was like, I have still had that imposter syndrome, but I'm going to ignore it for now and say, yes, let's go ahead and go on submission. It's all just coming together really quickly, so that's really exciting. So I'm going to respond to this email, and technically I was supposed to be doing a challenge video vlog today. I'm just not going to do it, but this is so exciting, and I'll update you guys whenever something else happens, or I guess when we go out officially. Monday, September 9th. And we're officially on sub. I just got an email a couple minutes ago from my agent, and it looks like it's gone out to 11 people in this first round as expected, and 6 people have already confirmed receipt. I don't know, apparently that's pretty good, and we'll hear more updates as stuff happens, so I'll update you guys, but just wanted to celebrate this little moment of first day on sub officially. Hi, I'm not usually a car recorder type of person, but we're gonna try it out today. It's Sunday, September 22nd. As of tomorrow, I will officially be 2 weeks on sub. I, for some reason, thought it was 3 weeks because it has felt so long. I've gotten confirmation receipts from pretty much everyone except 2 editors. Haven't gotten any rejections yet, haven't really heard anything yet, but of course it's still really early. I was like freaking out a little bit. The sub stories that you're gonna hear the most are gonna be the ones that are kind of like rarer or more outside the norm, which is sales in like 48 hours a week, because that's a really big accomplishment and it's impressive and interesting, and people like to share those stories. And I feel like you hear a lot less of the submission stories after like 4, 5, 6 months. I just hope that this book sells. So I'm kind of at that stage where I'm trying to balance out like my extreme anxiety and not be delusional. Like, I'm past the point of being delusional. 2 weeks in means that you can't be delusional anymore. And I think around like the 2 or 3 week mark of sub is when I historically have settled down with my madness. I was actually looking back at my old kind of emails from the previous 2 times I went on submission. For some reason, a bunch of those emails are missing, so there's a big gap between like May and November. May is when I went out, and November as in like 6 months after that. Obviously those books didn't sell, so I wasn't hearing back that much, but I feel like usually you get the first couple of rejections pretty quickly. Like, an editor will read a little bit of the book and not vibe with it and reject you, and that's fine. And that usually happens in like the first month or so. I haven't gotten any of those yet. I feel kind of left out. Hopefully, you know, if I do get rejections, they're more than just like a form. Any like feedback would be super nice. That is the update. Pretty much just that editors have confirmed receipt and we're just in the waiting period now. It's currently Saturday, October 19th. We're about to hit 6 weeks on sub. My agent and I had discussed that like 6 to 8 weeks is when she's going to start sending out nudges. I still haven't heard anything. I haven't gotten any rejections. It's kind of stressing me out, but you know what? This is a really busy time of year, and adult fantasy only has so many editors. Part of our strategy though was also submitting to like more upmarket editors, like editors who aren't strictly for science fiction fantasy, but are more into things like magical realism, contemporary fantasy, or like a touch of fantasy, a touch of speculative. I know logically, like after having been on sub for like almost 3 years before, I know this is not a very long time, but it feels long. And I think that first month, 2 months is always really, really difficult. And I'm doing this update partially because last night I actually had a stress dream about submission, which is probably a first, but it was like a dream where an editor was like, we were at the call stage, so not the offer yet, but they were like, I'm very interested in acquiring this. And then we actually, for some reason in the dream, met in person, and she just didn't like me and then decided not to offer on the book. So, you know, new fear unlocked. So that's kind of what's been going on.
Hello, it's currently Monday, October 21st. I'm just gonna film this really quickly because I want to get dinner and stuff, and it's been such a long day. But I did get my first 2 passes from editors today. I'm feeling like very normal about it. I think because today was so busy and I literally got the email from my agent as I was driving and like could only not, like I couldn't read it, obviously. It also helps that it's my 3rd go at submissions. So I was expecting this, I was waiting for it, almost anticipating it because we were at the 6-week mark and I was just expecting some sort of movement at this point. What was really unexpected and interesting is that both of the rejections were pretty detailed. In the past, I feel like most of the rejections I received from editors, they'd be kind of brief and sometimes even read like form rejections, which was always a bummer. But this time around, I like know the editors actually read my book, like read the manuscript, because they were mentioning specific details that they really enjoyed and then also talking about what didn't work for them. None of it felt like a form. It was all really specific. None of it was really actionable, so we're not at the point of like a revise and resubmit yet. And it's only the first 2 rejections and the first month. So there's like nothing we can do really at this point. What we did do actually was send out the manuscript and pitch to a couple of new editors. I do want to share like one really specific thing that one of the editors said. I'm not going to share anything negative. The exact line off the top of my head was something like, Larkspur Lee is a woman I could get behind immediately. And I was like, yes, at least that character is resonating with people, because I was really worried. So as long as that's happening, I'm pretty happy. So I'm expecting to see a couple more passes in the next few weeks here. So I'll just keep updating you guys as things happen. Bye for now. So it's Tuesday, December 3rd. We are coming up on, I think, 3 months of sub. Nothing yet. So I guess to kind of recap what's happened, because I've been kind of flaky on these updates. It's basically been radio silence since this update in October, but this is my first time submitting in like adult science fiction and fantasy, which is even smaller of a pool than young adult. And when there's a small pool of editors and imprints to submit to, then more people are submitting to those editors and imprints. Their workload gets really heavy, and yeah, so like I understand logically why it's slow, but that doesn't mean it's not tough, and it has been tough, and I have been feeling that strain and that pressure in particular over the last month or so. I've been feeling anxious and like kind of depressed and just not really having a good time with it. Thankfully, I have other things to dive into. Unfortunately, one of those things is I've gotten really into Magic the Gathering in the past like 3 days. That was my Thanksgiving break obsession, was I just got really into Magic. I'm making this update because now that the holiday's over, I was expecting like kind of a big wave of rejections. I still am sort of bracing myself for that. I'm waiting for that like pre-holiday kind of inbox clearing that happens. I feel like if it didn't sell in October, then it wasn't going to sell this year. So that's where I'm at. It's not a super happy place to be, but we have the new year. I really like adore my agent already, but I feel incredibly lucky to have her on my team. So yeah, that's kind of the update. Nothing has happened, and it's December, and so we're just gonna wait and see until the end of the holidays and into the new year if anything does happen with this book, and if not, we go on submission with the next one. I have to film this so quickly because I'm so late. It's December 4th. It's December 4th. Hi, I'm calm. I just got out of class. So I was driving to school. It's like 12-ish. I get an email from my agent, 5 passes, 1 potential offer for an R&R, which is a revise and resubmit, where basically the editor provides like editorial notes and feedback, and I would revise and then they would reconsider the manuscript, which is already like, I am over the moon. Like, that is a shot. That is my, way through. I was already considering doing a revision on mods. Like yesterday I was ruminating on it and thinking about what I would change just for fun without knowing this was happening. And then like 30 minutes ago, an hour ago, got another email from my agent. It's currently like, what, 4 p.m. And this one is for someone wanting to set up an editorial call. In one day, after months of radio silence and only 2 rejections, I have 7 responses, 5 rejections, 1 R&R, and 1 offer to set up an editorial call, which I don't want to jinx anything,
But typically when an editor offers to set up a call, it's to see if you're a good fit and if your vision's aligned so that they can offer. This is so insane. I'm like going to cry. But I'm not because I have to go to class. So I'm going to class. I'm going to my night class and then I'm going to freak out quietly there. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen. It's currently Friday, December 6th. My last little clip update was kind of, you know, energy was a little bit insane. So we're gonna be a little more calm. I just had a very productive and very lovely, enjoyable phone call with an editor. So the way that this went was that the editor set the call to kind of like get a vibe check on how I'm feeling about their notes on moths and, you know, what direction I'm looking to take it in to with editing, just like more about me and my inspiration. So all these discussions about the book, which by the way, it is so surreal to hear someone, a publishing professional, discuss your book and you realize that they've actually read it cover to cover and you're like, oh god, they've read it cover to cover. I had this with agents too, the same feeling. And then also have them be like, oh, and I also showed it to my team at the publishing house. So multiple publishing professionals have read my book and formulated opinions on it. And that is kind of magical. Like, the whole reason that I want to publish my writing really is to have it read by not just publishing professionals, but like people in general, and have them have their thoughts about it. And I think one of the things that I've found with this book, with Moths, is that it brings a lot of things to the surface for a lot of people. So you end up having these really like frank discussions about people's experiences with these themes, with their academic experiences. I think that's something that has made me feel proud about this book in times when I don't always feel super proud of the work that I've put into it. It's a vehicle for people to have these conversations with like strangers even. It resonates, like not with everyone, I'm sure, but it has resonated with the people I've spoken to. And I got that sense with this editor. Really like loved all of their suggestions and thoughts on editorial and like thoughts on the book. And I was able to share some of the editing thoughts that have been brewing in my head these past couple months. It was just a really good conversation. Anyway, we had that conversation. It was about like 50 minutes. I signed off and my agent stayed on to discuss like publishing logistics and that kind of thing. And it's sounding like we are going to acquisitions with this book. What acquisitions is this editor loved this book, wants to make an offer on it, but needs the approval of the wider team at the publishing house. So we've got editor interest. That editor is going to put together like documents. I'm not really sure what goes into it, but basically is going to take it to the greater team at an acquisitions meeting, which I think happen once or twice a week at a publishing house. Try to figure out if this is a book that they can make an offer on. How much are they going to offer on it? You know, what is it going to be like, profit loss margins? So business stuff goes into it. And also, do the other people in the house like this book and think that it's a good investment? That's my understanding of acquisition meetings. That could not be the case. Very, very happy that this editor loves this book. To actually go into like getting a contract or having an offer, we need to pass acquisitions. It's sounding like that's probably going to happen next week for this. I don't really know. Fingers crossed that it goes through. If it doesn't, it is what it is. Can't really control it. It's still really gratifying and I'm so thankful to have gotten to this point, and I'm so thankful for my agent who was there the whole time. I do think that things are probably going to move kind of slower because it's December 6th. We're going into holiday season. Publishing is slow until it isn't, and I think this is proof of that. Yeah, so no promises yet, but I've heard a lot of really encouraging things. I'm, you know, cautiously optimistic about what we're gonna hear back next week or in January.
It's Wednesday, December 18th. That can't be right. So this morning, because I've been waking up really late because I'm tired all the time, I woke up to a phone call from my agent, who I think deserves a million trillion I don't know. She just deserves more than 15%, right? Like it's, and not just because of this, because of all of it. This is not a gushing session about my agent. This is a gushing session about, I just got a pre-owned offer. Single book, just moths, North American rights only. That means basically the rights to publish in North America, so Canada and the US. Yeah, I mean, I was just like, yes, I got the call and I was like, yes. Technically, my agent is on vacation this week and she was still handling all this for me. But yeah, so I was like, oh, we didn't hear back, so I'm gonna hear back in the new year and that's fine. But we heard back today. My book is gonna publish and it's gonna be, I have to edit it first, so that's really important, and then it will release at a certain point in the future. And I survived submission. I've been on submission since September and it's the end of the year, and that wasn't a very long time at all. I thought it would be significantly longer, but I survived submission and I have an offer in my book that I have accepted and pending contracts. Like, my book is going to be published, and that's like so weird because I've been working not on this book, but on writing in general and pursuing traditional publishing for decades of my life, multiple decades. At this point, like a decade and a half probably. So I'm waiting on like one more phone call most likely in the next couple hours or so. I know my agent is confirming some of the details, but like it's a yes, unless there's something in just absolutely bananas in the contract. I feel like I've been very cautious and holding myself in a very cautious manner because I'm quite the superstitious individual. So I thought if I looked directly at it, if I looked directly at the animal that was submission and my hopes and dreams of publication, then it would run away from me. I'm probably gonna cry at some point, but yeah, offer, I have to go to work. Let's go.
This is not a vlog update, this is a submission update, because I'm just gonna keep adding to the submission vlog clips because I don't know when we're gonna be able to announce and when this video. My hair looks amazing. Okay, things that have happened since we got the offer. We hammered out all the details of the deal, so the advance and royalty cuts and like special considerations, like I get a certain bonus if a certain number of copies are sold in the first year. We have the official deal memo. We're talking about the language of the announcement, so the wording of what will go into that little like publishers marketplace. Maybe Publishers Weekly, that was also mentioned to me. I was under the assumption that not all deals get announced on Publishers Weekly. But basically the language that would be in those official kind of like here's the book deal announcements, which is super exciting. We went a little bit back and forth, just my agent and I, over the wording of that deal announcement language. I kind of gave like the final version that I would like, which was just had a couple more like specific details, things that I think would be like a good hook, because the original version that I think my editor wrote was a really good summary, but I was like, okay, let's put in some of the hooks that I like. So for example, I really like to mention the Paris setting. I think that's a hook that kind of sets it apart from other campus novels or dark academia. And then I wanted to be a little bit more specific with some of the conflict details as well, and we're all gonna hopefully get approved. All of this stuff is happening very fast. I had a nice break because it was like we sold on December 18th, everyone went on vacation, which same. I so enjoyed being brain dead and not being super stressed out about submission and just like enjoying my holiday. But now we are back to it. So yeah, that's the update. Bye.
So a couple of like notes or reflections on my submission journey, I guess. The first one is that it went way faster than I ever could have expected. I think from beginning to end, it was a little over 3 months. I'm sorry, it just felt like that in retrospect. During it did not. It felt long. But right now it feels very short. Also, for that entire time, I tried not to show it on camera, but my mood was very impacted by submission. I mean, like, I have a lot of joy from other places in my life, but every time I thought about it, I would just feel kind of weird and sad and disappointed in myself and stressed out mostly. That anxiety kind of made me a worse person, I think, for a little bit, and it also made me not super productive with my writing. I think those are all normal things. It's a stressful experience. Your body will react to stress, your brain will react to stress, and your creativity will react to stress in unexpected ways. And that is okay. Give yourself grace. You are a human first and a writer second. And if you need to step away from the art, from the craft for a little bit while on sub, that's okay. All of the periods that I've been on submission have been my least productive, creatively speaking, periods of my life. But generally speaking, I was able to ignore it during my day-to-day. There'd be like entire days where I'd forget that I was on sub, which were like the best days ever. They felt so good. The plus side of having died on sub twice after a really long period of time was that I've kind of learned to just ignore it, so everything happens for a reason. And I wanted to give one last little pep talk. If you are on submission now, if you are about to be headed on sub, or if you've died on sub and you're feeling stressed out about it, it is okay. It's okay to feel stressed out. It's okay to feel kind of off kilter. This is a stressful experience and it feels like a lot is writing on it, but you have more stories in you and you can write the next thing if you feel inclined, and this is not the end. And also, something good might happen. You never know. I hope you enjoyed this peek behind the curtain. I'm not gonna talk too much more because this was mostly about the book deal, about submission, about that journey. I will talk more about the publishing journey in future videos, so feel free to subscribe if you want to check that out. MOTHSBLOOD is being published by Bloomsbury US in fall of 2026. I could not be happier. This is what I've been working toward, which feels really weird because it also feels like nothing is over or even close to complete yet. I have a lot more stories in me as well, and I want to keep writing books and putting them out in the world for as long as I physically can. But for right now, I am so excited for 2026, for editing, for revisions, for working on this book to make it as good as I can possibly make it, but I'm most excited for all of you to finally meet Lark and the rest of the Moths crew. This has been such an intense process, and we are a long way out from pub day. But I also wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who has watched and subscribed and commented and shared your excitement for Moths, and I appreciate your guys' patience with me because I couldn't share that much about this book yet. I'm going to be sharing a lot more now. Thank you to everyone who has read early versions of this book or early chapters, however musty and crusty they were. Thank you to my wonderful friends both in our Discord Revising and Throwing Hands group chat and also my authortube friends for being supportive, and Chris and Kelly especially for listening to me rant literally like every other business day about submission and about how I was going to flop and fail, and I'm glad I didn't, but also you guys are amazing friends. Thank you again to my wonderful agent Laura Crockett and to my editor Kenley Manning for believing in this book. More thank yous are definitely to come because oh my gosh, this is such a group project. I'm very happy and I'm excited to keep sharing. Okay, bye. See you next time.